All right. So that was a long answer. We covered a lot of ground there. So CAS, medicine, whatever. We're going to move on to the next one. So we got asked about the positives and negatives of Air Force culture. So we're going to start off with a negative so that we can go to the positives. Because of our competitive nature, okay, we are all competitors all the time. You want to win, okay? If you're going to win, that means you compete with your friends. Sometimes that competition leads to a slightly, I will say, toxic environment, right? If you mess up in front of your friends are going to call you out. We have a culture of accountability. We foster and approve of winning and competing and fighting because that's what we do downrange. You have to fight, win, and compete. And sometimes that means, like, I'm not using hyperbole here. Sometimes you are fighting for your life, for your literal life. You are trying to be better than your adversary in a gunfight. So you are trying to be better than them, right? It is hard to turn that switch off with your friends, with your community. It is hard not to gossip about dudes. It is hard not to talk shit about people. There are going to be personality conflicts. And unfortunately, those personality conflicts, they sometimes, I mean, there's dudes that get in, you know, the old school way about it was you had a problem with a dude on your team. You'd take your blouses off. You'd go out to the mats. You'd go punch each other in the face. But the goal there was you go punch each other in the face and then it's over. That was the goal, was, okay, you got it out of your system. You don't like each other. Doesn't matter. I have a very good friend of mine. I respect him as a man. He is an amazing pararescue operator. He's a great team leader. He and I do not like each other. Did not like each other on our first time. Literally, the guy looked at me after knowing me for about 6 months, was like, hey man, I hate you. I do not like working with you, but I'm not here to like you. I'm here to work with you. I respect that guy more. Like, we're good friends now. You know, we're still not very alike. We still differ on a lot of, we still get into very respectful, but very heated arguments about stuff. And I'll tell you what, man, I respect that guy. That's how it's supposed to work. It's a little bit different now though. So now, you know, especially you see it in everything, right? Like you see people that'll shit talk David Goggins, people that'll shit talk Mike Glover, people that'll look at Tim Kennedy. He's a very polarizing figure, right? Guys that are nowhere near as qualified, as experienced as Tim Kennedy for whatever Tim Kennedy is. You know, there's civilians out there like, oh, I just don't like the way he does. Oh, these SEALs that are writing books. Oh, these guys that are on this podcast. Oh, these guys, the toxic nature, like that does extend into AFSOC, right? Because we're only human. We're a group of competitive alpha males, as cringy as that sounds to say in the environment now, you know what I mean? But we are those archetypical dudes. Like we are, and it's tough to stay away from the negative. And I fall victim to it all the time. I say things that I'm like, damn, I wish I wouldn't have said that. We talked about it earlier, looking back and going, I can't believe I did that. You know, that extends to interpersonal stuff too. So this culture in AFSOC, I'm saying that it can be negative, and I'm also taking ownership of it can be negative because I am a person in this community and I've contributed to those negative aspects of it. So I want to make that completely clear, right? Like this is not me saying AFSOC is terrible and everything's always negative and it's somebody else's fault, right? Because that's not what I'm saying. I take ownership of it. Now we try to make it better. We try to influence it in a positive manner. I've taken actual steps in my daily life to don't gossip, don't talk shit. I don't apply intent to somebody. Like, I don't know what their intent is. People will do things and I'll be like, well, I don't agree with that. Back in when I was younger and stupider, I'd be like, oh, well, that means they're a bad person, or they must have intended to do this maliciously. They probably didn't, because I've had people that are like, oh, well, you did this because you're a bad person. It's like, that wasn't my intent at all. I didn't say that. I didn't mean it the way that you're framing it. And oh, by the way, that's I would never do that. That's not the type of person I am. So it can be negative. It can be toxic. I'll tell you that for sure, because we want those strong personalities. We want those independent alpha male hard chargers sort of dudes. You are going to compete your entire career with people. Like, you compete to make rank. That guy may be your friend, but if you're the same rank, you're trying to do things better than him if you're going to make the next rank, if you're going to get the next deployment, if you're going to do the next cool school, you're going to have to compete with people. And sometimes people get lost in that competition and they forget, like, hey, these are real humans with real feelings that are just trying to do their best. And, it can be for me, negatives of the AFSOC culture. I think that's negatives of all special operations culture. Right. And you can see it like how many, brovet mill meme pages are out there. Like, look at the comment section of some of those things when a meme pops up or when an issue pops up, and look how many people have super strong and negative opinions on stuff.
Well, not even those. Like, just look at any post that CSAF, SimSAF, any of, Austin, Millie, any of them put up, or even an organization. Mm-hmm. Like, it's, that comment section.
Yeah. And I'm just as guilty of it. I'll get strong feel. Like, you see what you think is a behavior from a person, and you see it repeated a couple times, and immediately like, piece of shit. Whatever. And we do it to each other. Where Nick Kumalatos said it best. He said, we're effing cannibals, man. The second that one of your bros shows weakness, or the second that somebody in the community shows weakness, you think that because you think that that person, and you're like, no, I'm gonna hammer this dude. This is what we would do in the team room. I'd just be like, no, F you, you POS. I'm gonna call you out, and I'm gonna blast you out on social. And no, like, we are the first people. Like, we say we have this community sometimes, and then sometimes the worst smoke you get is from the community, just right away. It's like a reflex.
Yeah. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why it is.
I think it's the competition thing. I really do. Like, yeah.
Well, look at this. Yesterday, right? So the just effing quit, right? Page.
By the way, I love that page.
Yeah. I don't know why I said effing, because we've already cussed on here.
We've already cussed. Yeah.
So just fucking quit.
Yeah.
They're doing this challenge thing, which is hilarious, right? For points. Mm-hmm. And then they called me out on it. They called me out on it, and I was like, oh, all right, well, okay. Now, ego, mm-hmm. Competitiveness, and I had one day to do it because I hadn't paid attention to it beforehand. But then when I got tagged in it and called out on it, I was like, okay, well, so I ended up going and running a mile as fast as I possibly could in the middle of the day in Las Vegas.
Tight.
Because I had to meet the timeline, and I didn't score a single point. Didn't make the top 12 or whatever it was.
Right.
But I damn near, you better believe I was coughing the rest of the day. And right. I'm sitting here going like, man, my competitive spirit definitely has not died, because good God, I just get called out, just a couple words on a screen. And now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, brother.
Okay, you know what I mean? Brother.
Yeah. So it's like, dude, wow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I think that competitiveness translates into a positive.
I did, and
it is not all negative. It translates to a positive, because in order to be the best, in order to go into situations like we have to go into, and perform in some terrible scenarios, just mm-hmm. thinking, like, just right off the top of my head, think HKIA, disaster relief in Turkey, Pakistan, Japan. How about right here in our homeland, during hurricane relief, like some mm-hmm. of the terrible things you got to do, you have to be competitive and go, well, I'm going to get after this in order to be successful.
Right.
So, because sometimes if you were to go in here and go, oh boy, I don't know, I'm having second guesses, mm-hmm. and you need to be all in on it, because if you start having doubts, you might make a mistake and you might hesitate. And then we've talked about hesitating before. An 80% solution getting executed is better than no solution at all.
Better than 100. Yeah. An 80% solution executed right now is better than any 100% solution executed 2 days from now. Yep. Like, it just is right. And I think you're totally right. The positive stuff about, AFSOC culture, you're surrounded with the best dudes that you'll ever meet. You're surrounded with the best people that you'll ever meet. They're, multiple 3 or 4 time volunteers to do these given professions. They're driven. They really do want to help you. Underneath a layer of bravado and sort of anger and whatever, you really don't know a ton of like bad people that get into these career fields. Really, you might disagree with somebody. Everybody's going to have disagreements with whatever, but the culture really does coalesce around a given mission set. People seem to be doing it for the right reasons. Even the people that do display that toxicity or do display that angry attitude, they do so because they have such a deeply held belief in what it is that we do and the righteous missions that we do. They just maybe say it in a way that you don't like it, you know? So there's way more positives about the AFSOC culture. You know, people emulate special operations for a reason. The regular forces say, I want to be like these people for a reason. Airsoft exists because they want to emulate being on a small team of people doing hard or impossible things. That's it. You know, that's why they dress up and cosplay and LARP.
Dude, I love watching the Rangers. He's got a YouTube channel or something like that. Him and a couple other Rangers go and do airsoft and wreck people.
I was gonna say, do they just murk people?
Oh, dude, it's not even. I mean, they are points of domination, pie in corners, wrecking people.
Just angle man, corner boy, just hurting people's feelings.
Oh man, it's so good.
Just running through them. It's hilarious. That is one thing that I do like is I have had, you know, when you go force on force UTM, there is always an opposing force. And this is kind of like a tangent, but it's always funny to watch people that come in that think that they're, you know, they know about tactics and stuff. And it's really funny. We did this, I won't say what country it was from, but we were doing force on force training when I was deployed in Africa one time. And the opposing force were like, hey, okay, cool. Now that we're doing it, we're going to do some force on force. Here's the protective equipment that you need. Cause there's a whole reg that says how much protective equipment that you need. And like for us, like, man, it's protective equipment for me plus. Like you're not supposed to shoot your buddies in the face. It's not supposed to be a thing. It's supposed to be a center mass thing, but there's always rounds that like stuff happens, right? So like I've got my schmug around my neck because it sucks to take UTM rounds in the neck. You know, I've got my iPro, you know, my sleeves are rolled down like they're supposed to be. So the opposing force was kind of just like, oh no, we're gonna, you know, and some dudes had like short sleeves on. Some dudes had just like the bare minimum of stuff. And we were like, do you guys want to do that? And there was a little bravado like, oh, don't worry. We're not going to get hit. Like we're going to be fine. Okay. It was funny. After about two runs, those dudes were like, can we get like a 10 minutes? We're going to change some clothes out. A lot of long sleeves popped up. They started looking at us and be like, man, maybe I better put this scarf around my neck. Maybe I better start doing it. It was pretty funny, but it's because like the difference between trained and untrained, the difference between, you know, those Rangers and the airsoft dudes, the difference between somebody that thinks they know CQC because they took a single couple of classes from a dude that maybe, you know, a SWAT guy that maybe done it at one time. And then guys that actually do it for real a lot. A little bit different.
And I also of note, real actual tactics don't work in Call of Duty.
Yeah, no, they do not.
I was sitting over there with my son the other night, and you know, I was like, "Oh, let me grab that controller," which I'm terrible at, and I just kept getting murked because I'm sitting here trying to like use angles and stuff like that,
and they're just killing you.
And they're just like jumping and shooting,
shooting you, somehow headshotting you.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
All right, so that's